was beautiful. Welcome. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Welcome, all church whānau and visitors, to this place of worship, virtual and physical, a space made sacred by our coming together today and by gatherings of Auckland Unitarians for over 123 years. Welcome to those joining us remotely, to those here in the building, and to those watching the recording at a later time. If you're a visitor here for the first time, hi to the people from Washington. Thank you for choosing to be here with us. If you're a member or regular attendee, thank you for returning to join together in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Those of you here in person, you're all invited to join us for a cup of tea or coffee immediately following our service. It is our sacrament of hospitality. My name is Karn Cleary and I'm the service leader today, and my apologies to those of you who came to hear Ruby. Ruby unfortunately is unwell and we had to make the change at very short notice, but Ruby is really hoping to do her talk later and I'll be really interested to hear it. So the opening words today are by Marta Flanagan. In this time, we turn our thoughts to how we can touch and be touched, love and be loved, forgive and be forgiven, heal and be healed, so that the goodness of our lives is a shared blessing. And the words for the chalice lighting are by J. Atkinson. May our sharing bring warmth to our lives, understanding and sympathy for all whom we meet. May we be blessed in our friends and in our service. Thanks, Larry. And can you now please join with me in saying the words of our covenant? Love. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each other and with our God. The title of my address, which sort of fits with Ruby's theme, is The Liberal Church Finding Its Mission. It's not about you. This was written by the Rev Peter Bullata, who was minister at First Parish in Lexington, Virginia, when I first did this talk in 2014. I had to step in at really short notice, and luckily I had this sitting on my computer. So, this is not me talking, this is Peter Bullata. Recently, a fellow who does some work for my congregation was in the building. We had never met before, and so we introduced ourselves and chatted for a while in the church office. At one point he said to me, "You know, I should tell you this story. I have a 13-year-old son who has been asking a lot of religious questions lately. I was raised Catholic, but we're not involved at all, and I haven't really given him a religious education. One day my son was with me in the car when we drove by another Unitarian Universalist church. He asked me, because he knew that I had done some work for them, what kind of church it was. When I told him, he asked what Unitarian Universalists believe. So I told him, well, they don't really believe in anything specific. It's a religion where whatever you think or believe or feel or is what the religion is all about. And my son said, that's the kind of church I want to go to. And the fellow chuckled, and we had some pleasantries about his teenager being a Unitarian Universalist without knowing it. But my pleasant facade betrayed the bomb that had just gone off in my head. Oh dear God, it's true. We have institutionalized narcissism. Here was a person that was not involved in a Unitarian Universalist church and yet knew something about us. As an outsider, the message he received about what we stand for is, It's about whatever you want it to be about. It's all about you. This man did not invent this perception of Unitarian Universalism. He got it from somewhere. He got it from us. It could be posited that many thoughtful UUs talk to him about our creedless religion, our covenanted communities in which one is free to search for truth and meaning. It's likely that thoughtful UUs explained being gathered around basic principles and values rather than beliefs and doctrines. But what he heard was, we don't believe anything, we're just making this stuff up as we go along to suit ourselves. Of course, it's also possible that this is precisely what he was told. There's a difference between a free and disciplined search for truth and meaning, unencumbered by doctrine, and a religion that's all about you and whatever you want. How does "you are responsible for discerning your spiritual path" become whatever you think, feel, or believe is what the religion is? How did we become the religion that puts its faith in you, to quote an ill-conceived denominational slogan? A good deal of this slippage comes from a lack of opportunities for faith formation in our congregations, especially among adults. A disciplined search for truth and meaning takes effort. It takes discipline. Being unencumbered by doctrine ought not to imply that doctrine is not examined for the truth it may contain. Indeed, not being constrained by creedal formulations seems to have been translated into an abandonment of theological reflection altogether. We offer a non-dogmatic approach and context to religious inquiry without equipping members of our communities for the search. Discerning your spiritual path is difficult without tools, without support. Faith formation is not simply adult religious education. Run a couple of classes on building your own theology and spiritual practice, and then you're done. Formation involves worship and preaching, mission work and governance. It's the work of the entire enterprise of being church together. It takes place collectively, mutually, as well as individually. We are also formed as people of faith and conversation with the tradition, with our historic testimonies. The tradition speaks to us and we respond. We respond lovingly, critically, thoughtfully, but recognise that our historic context has a voice that's shaping today's conversation about who we are and what we're about. And it takes discipline. It is telling, I think, that the 1961 principles of the newly formed Unitarian Universalist Association speak of a free and disciplined search for truth and meaning, and the statement's revised 1980s version is a free and responsible search. I also find it telling how Unitarian Universalists like to speak, when they do it all, of spiritual practices, but almost never spiritual disciplines. Being together in community takes discipline and effort. I think we have become lazy and simply tell each other, you do your thing and I'll do mine, you have your spiritual practice and I have my book discussion group, whatever. Engaging one another in a spirit of curiosity, openness and humility, with the recognition that one might be mistaken or one's own perspective might be partial, is the opposite of institutionalized self-involvement. The practice of hospitality is the antidote of self-centeredness. The ever-present narcissism enshrined in our congregations spawns entitlement and complaint, rather than engagement and curiosity, because, well, you're not giving me what I want. There is a contradiction inherent in liberal religion. We are free, autonomous individuals in community with one another. Tension exists between freedom and connection, autonomy and community. There is no getting around it. Our calling is to live gracefully in that tension, holding them with equanimity, without being weighted as we are now toward individual freedom and autonomy. Our capacity for being a transformative presence in the world is diminished when we neglect the communal, connected, covenanted aspect of our life together. And when we focus primarily on the individual and their freedom, our institutions suffer. When my congregation was in search of a new minister, they conducted a workshop on welcoming their new settled clergy person with the district executive. When she asked, "What is the minister's primary job?" somebody answered, "To make us happy." "To serve our needs," someone else chimed in. The DE replied, "Guess what? The minister's job is not to make you happy. The minister's job is to serve the mission of the church." There was a sharp intake of breath in the room. That moment was such a shock of recognition that the people who were there remember it still. It's not all about me. It's not all about my needs. At church these days, and in our movement more broadly, we are having conversations about mission. What are we for? What are we called to do? Where are we being sent? In a collection of individuals, each on their own responsible search. These questions are impossible to answer. There is no we. There is no shared identity, let alone shared sense of purpose or vocation. I am sceptical about Unitarian Universalism ever becoming the sort of mission or religious movement that some of my colleagues and friends are imagining. A group of like-minded individuals doing community service together with no theology, no discerned sense of vocation, is not a faith community, it's a Rotary Club. A group of people dedicated to liberal ideals with no shared theology, no shared sense of vocation is not a church, it's a political club. The National Lesbian and Gay Task Force do a fine job of fighting for LGBT equality. Why would I join a church to do that? The Forest and Bird Society and Greenpeace do a great job of raising conservation issues. Why would I join a church to do that? Local service agencies alleviate suffering of all kinds and use my volunteer time. Why would I join a church for that? Religious liberals, both within our movement and beyond it, dropped theology in favour of social action in the 20th century. We are compelled to do social justice work, but we have little or no understanding of why this is religious. To base whole congregations around this kind of mission work without a clearly articulated theology is to reinvent the Rotary Club for religiously inclined political liberals. And a clearly articulated theology of social ministry is not possible as long as theology is whatever individuals happen to believe, think or feel at any given moment. As long as our Unitarian community continues to neglect discernment, theology, discipline, spiritual practice, faith formation, vocation, and engagement with our historic testimonies and tradition, we will never be a missional religious movement. As long as we are known as the church of individual seekers, we will never have the kind of impact that a missional religion has on transforming the world. It should go without saying that the chronically self-involved have no interest in serving the needs of others. What would it take for us to be known in the wider community for some of the traits, characteristics, and perspectives we hold in common, and that we continue to share with our historic legacy? What would it take for our communal calling as a faith community to become as important as our much vaunted individual spiritual journeys? What would it take for a parent in the car with their 13-year-old to be able to say, driving past our meeting house, something like, "That's the church where they believe you can hear God talking in nature"? Or that's the church where they teach religious studies and make you think about what to believe. Or perhaps that's the church that says there's no hell, as well as that's the church that marries gay couples. What would it take for us to be the religion that puts its faith in something larger than you? So we're going to have a few minutes of silence, and then Frank's going to play us some music. And I'd ask you to please be quiet during the meditation. The friendship we share today is sacred. All gatherings when people meet and touch celebrate life. The laughter we share today is sacred. Joy and sorrow that rise from love are springs of life. The stillness we share today is sacred. And this silence is a haven for the spirit that nurtures life. Thank you, Frank. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of warmth of community or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Closing words. With faith in the creative powers of life, with hope for the future life of this world, with love for all others who share this life with us, let us go forward together in peace. Our meeting has ended. Let our service begin. And Frank's going to play a postlude. By Scarlatti. So if you could just stay seated till he finishes, and then please join us for tea and coffee and cake afterwards.